G'day guys, welcome to the first day of December 2025. Over the last few days we saw that recent high energy period, which is the 28th to the 30th of November, and that saw the remnants of tropical cyclone Fina. There wasn't much of a circulation or anything, but the core of that producing widespread showers and storms, mostly through southern parts of South Australia and Victoria. That was followed by this frontal system that's crossed over the southeast over the weekend as well. Alongside that, we just saw some more of those scattered storms through eastern parts of New South Wales, Queensland, right up into the northern tropics, and again across the Northern Territory, top end, and Kimberley. Otherwise, not a lot going on, and this will be the case now moving into the first week of December. What we'll see is this frontal system, once I pause this, over the southeast will clear off today, and that'll be followed by a broad high pressure system. You can see the storms are starting to contract north, and that's because of that high pressure ridge that's building. It'll push all that moisture back up to the far northern tropics. And then what we'll see is as these southeasterlies push out into the Timor Sea, that'll start interacting with the northerly, northwesterly from the equatorial belt Indonesia. And we'll see that next tropical low. So this cloud mass up here, while this isn't obviously the tropical low itself, this is the moisture source that's slowly starting to filter down. And you can see over the last few days, if you monitor the satellite, start getting these spiraling cloud bands coming off these thunderstorm areas, which shows us convection and rotation for vorticity in the atmosphere. So this is where this next low is going to form. It's around 112, 114 east. We'll see the long range maps for those as well in today's update. You'll see the system in the west is the favoured one, and it can come down towards the Pilbara. There's likely to be another washed out low, more of a trough form over the top end, and then a secondary low, or the third low, out here near 160 east to the south of the Solomons, and that'll track to the southeast. It won't come to the southwest, so you'll see all the Facebook model sharers post every run of this. Should pass between Vanuatu and New Caledonia. Check out the long range forecast for that as well. So that's generally what's going to happen. So we'll move into a heating phase for the interior, pretty dry, scattered storms across the northern tropical belt and mostly clear in the southeast. So that about sums up the satellite and the week ahead. If we go to the rainfall models. So this is the ECMWF 24-hour precip. Each day shows 24 hours accumulated rainfall. So today, by 10 p.m. tonight, this is that front that's currently moving over the southeast from the satellite imagery. It will clear off from today into tomorrow with just some patchy showers and remnant activity. There's likely to be a little dusting of snow across alpine regions of the snowfields Victoria and possibly parts of highlands of Tasmania. And what will happen is as this high pressure system builds, it'll obviously it'll clear out to the southeast. It'll be that cool change for southeastern regions, and then the southeast winds will push these storms that have been working along the east coast for the last week or so further north, and they'll slowly contract north to the peninsula and across the top end and parts of the Kimberley. But generally it'll just be hot and dry through the interior, and as these easterlies move across the interior, they'll pull heat into the southwest. So those through the goldfields into the southwest interior should plan for added heat moving forward, particularly as we move into the middle part of December, where there's this tropical cyclone window build. So into Tuesday, by 10 o'clock Tuesday, it's generally clear in the southeast. There'll just be some patchy onshore showers for western Tasmania and far southern parts of Victoria. Possibly some onshore showers for East Gippsland coast, but not a lot else happening. Coastal activity for exposed coastlines, and generally just some storms for peninsula. And that's about all she wrote there. And storms in the north, they're breaking down. We've moved out of that last high energy period, so now we'll just see those typical scattered storms, 5 to 20 mils at best. Wednesday, we see pretty much the same pattern. High pressure builds in the east. There's a bit of a trough that pushes in onshore, mostly north of Kabul, up towards Cooktown, and those storms will then filter across most of the peninsula, but again, clear for the majority of the country, and quite hot building in the west as these northeasterlies and northwesterlies build into the western interior. There's that broad trough that digs right down into the Eucla district of Western Australia. By Thursday, again, same pattern, concentrated rain, mostly north of Kabul to Cooktown, so that traditional wet tropics coast. Locally very heavy along the coast there, so Innisfail south to Tully. It's the wettest place in Australia, but we're looking at 50 to 100 mils plus with this onshore trough, and then just some patchy showers and storms for the Arnhem District, Gulf, and peninsula, clear elsewhere. Maybe some light showers for Western Tasmania, but yeah, that's only registering less than 5 mils anyway. Into Friday, that trough breaks down along the northeast coast, and we see general patchy showers, scattered storms across the top end continuing. But you can see that there's still not a lot of activity going on there. And this is when we'll start seeing this area up towards Bali, Indonesia, start to build. We see a lot of moisture right up through the tropics. There won't be a monsoonal surge. There's this tropical low here moving up towards the islands up here through Manila, but that'll sort of block that northeast, northwest flow. But what we need to see is how this tropical surge builds to the northwest of the Pilbara. Notice there's a bit of a trough building through the Arafura Sea too, so this is a key takeaway as well, where we might see a secondary low to the around the Arnhem district, possibly across the Cape York Peninsula, but the focus of tropical activity will be further west. It's not in this one, so we'll go to a different model run. It goes out a little bit further, but this is that low starting to form here. It's right at the end of this run, but it should form from the 8th to the 12th of December. So we'll go to a different model. So this is the Tropical Tidbits website, ECMWF. Online I see a lot of comments saying, why do I cherry pick certain models? There's certain characteristics that these models have. So the GFS will typically pick up a model simulation, a run ahead of the ECMWF and all the other models. It'll over-simulate it, but it'll identify it, and then it'll drop it. And this is where people get confused. So if we go to the GFS here, we'll go back a few runs, you'll see that the GFS is picking up these low pressure signals from the area that were identified. It's also picking up low pressure signals across the Arafura Sea, and there's also this one out near the Solomon Islands. So it's picking up all three. If we go to the ECMWF, we have to go back a couple of runs just to find something with a bit more substance, just to show the visual part of it. It's picking up the stronger low in the west from around that 8th till 12th of December, and that system then forms and tracks south towards the Pilbara. So this is the one we need to watch, and that's also supported by the ECAI model. Again, it shows a very similar pattern where this system forms around the 8th to the 12th of December, anywhere from 112 to 114 east, and then it should track to the south towards the Pilbara coast by around the 16th, 17th of December. So there's multi-model agreement on this, with this western system being the focus system. So anyone out in the Pilbara, anywhere from the Kimberley south to the Exmouth coast, just be aware of this. There's a high probability that it will form, and there's a good probability that it'll move close to the coast at least. So this precedes a wet period that goes from the 18th till the 24th. So this thing should cross the coast around the 16th to 18th, and then that'll introduce the moisture into the interior, and we'll get that widespread storm outbreak that extends into week 4 up towards Christmas Eve. So the timeline does fit, and if you see the long-range forecast maps which are in today's update, you'll see exactly how that should transpire. So that's generally the tropical outlook on top of the rainfall models. If we go back to accumulated precip just for the week ahead, you'll see that there isn't expected to be much rainfall outside that far northern tropical belt. These showers and storms in the southeast generally clear off from today into tomorrow, and just some highly isolated scattered storms along the east coast, again with the focus stuff across the Kimberley top end and the far north of Queensland. So there's not a lot of activity. This is a heating building phase, and once these tropical lows form, particularly this one in the west, we'll see another heat wave building through the interior as it pulls all the moisture offshore and the high pressure ridging dominates. So expect increasing heat and humidity building in the west, moving into the east, and then the eastern interior by mid-month, with high humidity and high temperatures extending well down into New South Wales into week 3 of December. Have a check of those long-range maps again, you'll see what the timeline looks like. So it's going to be a bit of an uncomfortable week or so ahead, especially if you're in the north, and fire risk will continue to build in the southeast. We'll have a look at the November decile maps, and there's a bit to talk about there in terms of this drought we've been talking about now for a few years. So this is the rainfall deciles for the last few months. So this image is from the 1st of September to the 30th of November, so yesterday, and it shows this drying trend that we've been talking about across the southeast interior that began in 2023 in the west, moved into the central interior 2024, 2025, and then 2025 into 2026, we're watching this play out through the southeastern interior. And this is a big part of why I said the spring rainfalls wouldn't occur. You know, there's all these events that have transpired which have accounted towards that, such as the sudden stratospheric warming event and all the other things that they're forecast after the fact. But they're just contributing factors to something that's already exists, and they I guess they enhance current conditions to make this play out. So there are these cycles that travel around the globe at certain frequencies, whether they're wet cycles, dry cycles, cyclone cycles, or whatever. And this particular one seems to be moving at about 10 degrees a year. We've been watching this for a while outside of Australia. I actually noticed this in the USA a few years back, where it moved from the west coast. California had that great drought, and then it moved through the central states, through all the growing areas, through Cyclone Alley and all those sorts of states, and then it's moved out into the eastern parts of the country as well to a lesser extent. And that's where it sort of indicated that this progressional feature does exist. And so when we see these models with these huge rainfall outlooks like we did with spring with the negative IOD, that was never going to be the case, because there was this larger driver underneath that was limiting rainfall on the ground. And that's why we saw a lot of the rain move into the west, parts of South Australia, and then be deflected through the southeast, and we've just seen those enhanced fire weather conditions. So if we look at November itself, we can see that those dry anomalies persisted right through the southeast interior. And if you notice, remember some of the updates over the last few months, we said that the spring rains wouldn't occur. It would progressively build into the wetter period, would start from the end of October through November, with the peak being that final part of November. So November would provide the wettest month of spring of the 3 months. And this is definitely reflected here. If we go back through the outlooks, we can see that November saw the most widespread positive anomalies, so right through the east coast, the north, the interior, the west, and the south, while October saw largely below average to average rain through most of the greater eastern parts of the west, and September saw mostly below average rainfall through the western and southern interior, southeast, and the northeast as well. So that's definitely played out quite well as far as I'm concerned. So now we should move back towards more average conditions over summer. We're not looking at a extensive wet season for the north. Most of the tropical events will be focused in the west, so we should see above average rain overall for the west and parts of the Northern Territory, with rainfall in the east. While we might see pockets of higher rainfall, they'll be concentrated to just one or two events. It won't be persistent rain like we saw in 2025. So if that adds some context to how the season should play out, that's a bit of a bonus there. So for those in the southeast, I'm just going to keep saying it, this will probably get worse. It'll drag out right through the year. If we don't see some bad fires through this current summer, they'll definitely be there in the next spring of 2026. So just be aware of that. This is only just building now. And if you go back through the climate and weather records of the last few years, you'll see how impactful that was through Western Australia. Through the southwest, they saw some extremely dry conditions for over 12 months. Then we saw the driest year for South Australia on record last year, and then that should build through the southeast this year. So pay attention to what's actually happening, and don't so much look at the computer models, because they will lead you astray.